All right, let's dive right into this explainer and unpack what is honestly one of the most fascinating paradoxes in the history of global sports. When we think of global dominance, we usually picture massive scale, right? Endless resources, sprawling empires, that sort of thing. But in international football, the ultimate global powerhouse is actually the smallest organization in the entire game. Today, we're decoding CONMEBOL, the South American Football Confederation.
10. Literally just 10 member nations make up CONMEBOL. Out of all 6 FIFA continental confederations across the globe, it is by far the smallest. And to put that into perspective, it's the only fully continental, land-based FIFA confederation out there. There are no island countries or associates from different continents mixed in, none of that. It's strictly 10 nations: Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Ecuador, Paraguay, Peru, Uruguay, and Venezuela.
But here is where the math just absolutely stops making sense. Those exact same 10 nations, they hold a staggering 10 men's FIFA World Cup titles. I mean, it's an incredible, almost impossible ratio of membership to absolute global triumph. This historic dominance is basically split among a legendary trio. You've got Brazil holding 5 of those World Cup titles, Argentina holding 3, and Uruguay with 2. A confederation with the absolute fewest members has somehow managed to conquer the globe a combined 10 times, giving us absolute icons from Pelé all the way to Lionel Messi. So how exactly did this incredibly concentrated pocket of excellence actually come to be?
Section 1. A Century of History, the oldest continental confederation.
To really understand this concentration of footballing power, we've got to rewind the clock back over 100 years. CONMEBOL actually holds the prestigious title of being the oldest continental confederation in the world. It was founded way back in July of 1916. And the spark for all of this, it was a tournament in Buenos Aires held to celebrate exactly 100 years of Argentine independence. The passion was clearly already there, but it took this visionary Uruguayan executive, Hector Rivadavia Gomez, to organize the 4 participating associations, which were Argentina, Brazil, Chile, and Uruguay, into a formal governing body. They officially ratified this decision at their first Constitutional Congress in Montevideo in December of 1916. And then, slowly, over the next few decades, the remaining South American nations joined the fold, with Venezuela finally completing the 10-member roster in 1952. Moving on to Section 2, defining South American tournaments, where legends are forged.
Because, let's be real, a century of history only matters if it translates to fierce competition on the pitch. The absolute bedrock of their calendar is the Copa America, which is the oldest continental football tournament in existence. And, uniquely, CONMEBOL actually invites teams from completely different continents, places like Japan or Qatar, to come over and face the South American gauntlet. Meanwhile, at the club level, the Copa Libertadores remains the absolute, undisputed pinnacle of the sport in South America. The organization, which is headquartered in Luque, Paraguay, also runs the Copa Sudamericana, extensive youth and futsal championships, and the hugely vital Copa America Femenina.
But look what happens when we compare the men's and women's game. A pretty stark contrast emerges here. While the men's global dominance is this classic 3-way tug-of-war between Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay, the women's premier competition tells a completely different story. It is an absolute Brazilian dynasty. Powered by absolute legends like Marta, Brazil has completely monopolized the Copa America Femenina, claiming an astounding 9 titles. Argentina is literally the only other nation to break that streak, and they've only done it with a single title. Section 3. The toughest world qualifiers, a grueling path to glory.
The toughest qualifiers in the world. Now, that is not just some flashy marketing slogan. It is a brutal reality, a reputation earned through a gauntlet that breaks even the greatest players and managers on earth.
Think about the absolute nightmare scenario for visiting teams. First off, there is nowhere to hide. It's a pure round-robin system, home and away against every single team. But the true killer? The geography. Imagine flying from sea level straight into the suffocatingly thin air of La Paz, Bolivia, which is nearly 12,000 feet up, or battling through the sweltering, humid tropics of the equator. Because of these environmental factors, weaker national teams suddenly become absolute titans at home. Add in incredibly hostile, intensely passionate fan bases, and home field advantage truly becomes a weapon.
And then just look at the sheer density of talent. Out of a confederation of just 10 teams, half of them, are sitting comfortably within the top 25 of the global FIFA men's rankings. Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, Uruguay, and Ecuador. I mean, when 50% of your continent is ranked in the global elite, there are no easy games. Every single qualifying window feels like a World Cup knockout stage.
Section 4. The 2015 Corruption Scandal. A dark chapter.
Because as dominant as CONMEBOL has been on the field, its history off the pitch hasn't always been pretty. In May 2015, the international sports world was absolutely stunned. Swiss police raided a hotel in Zurich, arresting several top CONMEBOL leaders. They were indicted by the U.S. Department of Justice on some incredibly heavy charges: corruption, money laundering, and racketeering. The sweep directly implicated former CONMEBOL presidents Eugenio Figueiredo and Nicolás Leoz. By December, the sitting president Juan Ángel Nabut was also arrested. This created a massive power vacuum, completely forcing a necessary leadership overhaul. And that ultimately culminated in the election of Alejandro Dominguez in January 2016 to try and steer the organization out of this massive crisis.
Section 5. The future of CONMEBOL, digital expansion and youth focus.
Under new leadership, the Confederation realized they couldn't just rely on their century-old legacy anymore. They had to adapt. And they did. Nearly 2.5 million subscribers on YouTube. For a regional governing body, that is a massive digital footprint. By bypassing traditional broadcasting barriers, they've taken a direct-to-consumer approach that is paying off immensely, instantly connecting them with a younger, deeply engaged global fan base.
But what's really fascinating here isn't just that they are posting, it's what they're highlighting. Sure, the massive men's qualifiers draw millions of views, for sure. But they are actively pouring resources into broadcasting the future. They are pulling in tens of thousands of viewers for live streams of the Women's Nations League, like recent matchups between Uruguay and Chile. They're putting a massive spotlight on sub-17 and sub-20 youth tournaments. They are literally putting the next generation of global superstars right there on your phone screens before those kids ever even sign a major club contract.
So this 10-member organization completely defies the logic of scale. They wield unparalleled passion, terrifying geography, and a historical weight that includes 10 men's World Cup titles. And right now, they are digitally weaponizing their youth and women's tournaments for a massive global audience. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this thought. As modern football becomes increasingly driven by mega wealth, endless expansion, and massive global tournaments, how exactly will this compact, deeply traditional, yet fiercely competitive 10-member giant dictate the future of the beautiful game? Keep a close eye on South America, folks, because the smallest giant in football is far from finished.